Typically, there are two ways we focus on learning. One way is to pick a subject and take a deep dive, absorbing everything along the way to reach the pinnacle of a subject. Another common option is to try to learn about a lot of different subcategories or applications to get a broader view of a subject and how it interacts with other topics. Usually, a combination of both deep and broad exploration allows people to connect and learn as much as possible, but there's a small problem here. To try to illustrate this a little more concretely, let's put some topics from left to right and more specialized topics further down. Learning broadly means reaching a shallower area, but digging out a multitude of topics to better your understanding. Learning deeply, on the other hand, takes a deep dive into the topics needed to support it. Both offer ways of approaching new subjects and adding them to your existing skill set. However, with more new skills, there's more to remember. There are a lot of subjects, and you could always break a topic like arithmetic into the operations. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, exponentiation, logarithms, and whatever else you want to put in. Well, you might not think of exponents or logarithms as arithmetic, but are they really that different? Exponents are just repeated multiplication, so going from multiplication to exponents should be about as much of a jump as addition to multiplication. Similarly, going from exponents to logarithms should be just like going from multiplication to division. So why do I bring this up? Well, we were just talking about how the more you learn, the more you have to remember. Keeping up with each and every one of these small sub-skills you learn is going to be pretty taxing, and if you don't properly practice, some of them will fade away. And this is problematic because all that cool, broad, and deep learning relies on connections to stay. So what does that mean? Is there only so much we can learn? And after a certain amount of knowledge, do we just give up? I mean, maybe you do, but maybe there's a way to make the knowledge pool a little smaller. Just like how we broke down arithmetic into the operations, we can pool together smaller subjects into a larger reservoir of skills and facts. Importantly, we should make a distinction between facts and skills. For a fact, you either know it or you don't, unless you can make a deduction from other facts and skills that bring it together. What I mean by this is that you can offload factual memorization with a skill. Like if you know how to multiply your 10 by 10 multiplication table and how to multiply multi-digit numbers, you don't need to memorize random products like 13 times 77, which I know to be 1001. Another distinction is that the facts you memorize are usually static and unchanging. 1 plus 1 will still be 2 in 20 years. Probably. This makes facts easier to remember once you know them. Meanwhile, being able to apply skills well will always take more effort to maintain. While this means skills can be lost, it also makes them less tangible. After all, your skills grow and can be applied in ways that only you know. Still, we can imagine some general categories. For example, computation can encompass a lot of mathematical applications. Lots of science and engineering revolves around your ability to do computations using some factual formulas. If you know how to set up the equations and solve them, the only difference between the Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution and a statistical normal distribution is the number of dimensions, how it's applied, and well, the conceptual background and facts around it. You might notice with this example that what I'm talking about is actually one of the common methods of learning I started with. Learning broadly, making connections between subjects even across fields, not solely focusing on becoming an expert in one, but trying to understand how these problems can relate to one another. But these subjects are unlikely to be learned at the same time. You won't make the connection between Maxwell-Boltzmann and normal distributions if you learned each one separately. Still, understanding how to solve one distribution can make an understanding of how to solve the other. I think if you pick some topics that are a little closer together, like gravity and electromagnetic forces, it's a little easier to see that even though they're generated by different forces, the problems are generally worked and solved in similar manners. Or maybe let's go back to the example of exponents and logarithms. Exponents are often introduced early as repeated multiplication, just like multiplication is repeated addition. But logarithms are taught as a completely different beast. People are given a silly table to remember all the logarithm rules, yet are usually perfectly content with manipulating exponents with maybe a rule about multiplying when exponentiating exponents. In reality, you could work with just exponents to work out all the logarithm rules. Forget the table, understanding the manipulation solves your problems just like any other arithmetic problem. There's something missing here. And I think we often see learning as a means of acquiring more knowledge. There has to be something new and exciting to pursue. We have to add to our ever-growing, expanding knowledge pool. And in the search of the greatest depth or widest reach, we often neglect what we already know. It's monotonous, easy, or just too simple and boring. But there's value in looking at what you know and making your world a little smaller. Go back in and fill in the small gaps. Develop skills that work for not one, but multiple topics. Work to not just make your knowledge bigger, but denser. and be better at what you do. And I know, it might not be very exciting or rewarding. In fact, it might seem like the effort you once put in was not really worth it, reduced to something more trivial and small. But that's because learning is a slow process and there's so much you can learn. So maybe it's hard to appreciate all the menial work and trivialized methodologies, but maybe we can find some fascinating connections within. And to do that, sometimes it's okay to go about doing things slowly or in the seemingly pointless ways, because sometimes when you get good enough at doing things wrong, you can be right. And well, that's what I'll be doing.